Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the 4-Star Chicago Sports Podcast. We are barely there. We got PT57 back in the house, and we got Kyle in the house, and Plank is in the house. Bear down, buddy. Thanks for joining us, man.
What's up,
really
Jason?
Appreciate it. And we got some news to talk about. Not a lot. So we decided that we're gonna dive into this offensive trench side of the ball this week. We all did our homework, sharpened up the pencil, and dove into some of these high draft picks, second-round draft picks, third-round draft picks, all the way through the fourth round. I think even Jay went as far as getting a couple guys that might go in the fifth round that have some potential talent that could surprise some people, which does happen all the time in the NFL. So on top of that, before we get into that, I just wanted to touch on this wonderful shit that happened in Green Bay today with Josh Jacobs coming out and pretty much ripping his wide receiver core. And Dontavion Wicks and Jaden Reed took to the internet like, dude, that's crazy, bro. You're dissing your wide receivers, and you guys can look up their tweets because that was awesome. And I'll tell you this, the Naperville Central product, Jaden Reed, I welcome you back to Chicago as our number 3, brother. Come on home. Forget about being in Green Bay. They suck anyways. What did you think about that, Kyle? Jay?
I mean, I can tell you this, man. I did not expect Jaden Reed to say, F you, Packers fans. You're supposed to be rooting for us. I mean, he literally told them to fuck off. That's insane. I haven't seen something like that in a long time. I mean, obviously they got to get whatever's going on over there fixed up, man, because this could become a problem real quick. I mean, Josh Jacobs basically comes out on Instagram today and calls out all of his receivers. And you know what, guys? Truth hurts. There is no true number 1 receiver on the Green Bay Packers. He's right.
Yeah, he's not lying.
You can be mad about it all you want, but it's the truth. I said this at the beginning of the season last year. The Packers need to sign a number 1 receiver. They're not going to be at the top of the NFC North until they do that, and it showed this year. And until they do that, they can complain and whine and moan about Josh Jacobs' comments all they want, but the truth hurts, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a fantastic news day. We also, I guess, Jay, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, maybe get a quarterback that doesn't throw key interceptions and key points in the game. That might help you.
So, also, I guess there was a little confusion going on here with Bill Johnson and the new hire, Jeremy Garrett, I believe his name is. I guess Jeremy Garrett is going to be the Bears' new D-line coach, and Bill Johnson, in his 45 years of experience, is going to be some kind of defensive assistant, like a liaison on the defensive side of the ball. So I guess we'll get some clarification. I mean, when you Google them, it still says Bill Johnson, D-line coach, but some of the spots say his position's yet to be determined. So I don't know. I really don't know on this one.
Hey, man, you know what I think what they're doing is they're just hiring all the best candidates possible, and they'll sort it out later. I mean, I think Bill Johnson's probably going to end up being like a defense quality control coach at some point. I think he's going to oversee a little bit of everything, the defensive line, the secondary, safeties, corners. I mean, the guy has, 45 years of coaching experience. You should probably lean on that as much as you possibly can. I thought for sure when they brought him here, he was going to be the defensive line coach, but I'm not upset about it. It seems like Ben Johnson knows what he's doing in hiring the staff. I mean, they have a little bit of everything on this staff. Young and innovative, old and experienced. I mean, anything that Ben Johnson needs from the staff, he can get it. I mean, especially with the 3 recent coaches, Eric Bieniemy, Bill Johnson, and the offensive line coach. There's over 100 years of coaching experience between those 3 guys.
Yeah. And really quick, I want to say welcome to the Twitter community, because we do have a host of people watching on X today. I said Twitter, just like the Washington Redskins, but we do have, formerly known as Twitter. We are live on X for the first time, and we will continue to be live on X moving forward. So this is great breaking news for 4-Star Chicago Sports. We look to expand a bunch of knuckleheads sitting here talking sports with y'all. We really appreciate everybody in the building, checking us out today. Boys, we're going to get into the Super Bowl towards the tail end here, wrap up a few prop bets, but let's get into these trenches, man.
Real quick, just want to say what's up to Breaking News, Bruce and Plank. Appreciate you guys showing us. Please hit that like button And Jason, I don't know who is. Somebody's got a little bit of feedback coming through their phone.
Yeah, we do somewhere. Hold on, Jay. 1 second. We're gonna do this. Kyle, are we doing good? Yes, it is coming. Jay, it's coming. Kind of tweak it or something just a little bit.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it last week.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, I mean, I can turn it down anymore, but I won't be able to hear you.
So we got Trey joining us. We got Scott Angel joining us. Cherd Ferguson's back on the show, man. We appreciate you guys. Scott says emphasis knuckleheads. Thanks, Scott.
We really appreciate you.
All right, Sean, lead the way.
Yeah, so as we get into this, as we get into these linemen, you know, and we have our new coach, obviously, from the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions were built in a very specific way. So it's no surprise to me that the Bears would be looking to build this offensive line. It was obviously a weakness, and we have to protect this quarterback in Caleb Williams. And going into this, Kyle touched on this on Monday. We're going to get into this. We're going to look at some free agents, how we build the trenches, some money that we have, because the cap right now, the Bears have $62,968,403 in the cap. They expect the Bears number when everything's said and done to be about $82 million. A couple players that could possibly be cut here, maybe Gerald Everett and Ryan Bates, saves you another $9 million. I would be perfectly okay if both of those guys were not back on this roster. But I am going to throw these up on the bottom here. And this is, guys, I have no idea about financials. I am not a financial wizard. I kind of just went through the basis of the positions and what they get paid and how they get paid and kind of came up with these numbers. So they're scrolling on the bottom. I figured with the $82 million, you allocate 5 years, $110 million to Trey Smith. You're looking at $22 million a year. That falls right in line to where he would be looking if he was to be signed with the cap. There's also a rumor going around right now that the Chiefs are going to sign him and possibly trade him. So we have that. And then I have Drew Dahlman at 4 years, $50 million. That's about $12.5 million. And then I have Josh Sweat at 4 years, $60 million. Josh Sweat is coming off 3 years, $40 million. So this would be giving him a raise. Now, this would be a total of about $49 million. But I do like the way the Eagles have this structured. And before I move on, I'm going to get your guys' feedback on this. But the way that the Eagles have Josh Sweat, and you guys know how I am about incentive-based contracts. I love them. So Josh Sweat right now makes an extra $500,000 for a Pro Bowl, an extra $1 million if he's an All-Pro. His sack incentives are $500,000 at 8, $1 million at 10, 1.5 at 11, and $2 million at 12. I think if the Bears are smart, they can work something out like that with him. I think it would be amazingly fantastic. And this kind of gets us away from the Myles Garrett. Kyle, I know you went into some of these numbers. So what do you think about these numbers on the bottom? Do you think this is feasible? And guys, it should be for the Bears draft picks, and we'll continue to get into this about $14 million with their draft picks being signed right around there. And really quick before I turn it over to you, Kyle, I just wanted to touch on, I have Kyler Gordon. I forgot I put him in there for the re-sign. If you re-sign Kyler Gordon based on the market, I went right off the market, and you can see the top nickels in the NFL right now make about $30 million over a 3-year span. So I had 4 years, $40 million. It kind of keeps it in the same range for what the market is right now. Boys, take it away. What do you think of our start here for rebuilding the Chicago Bears?
I mean, Sean, your numbers are pretty on. So basically what I did is I went online. I found an AI program that takes all the articles talking about what these guys are projected to sign for, and Trey Smith, Drew Dahlman, all the guys you're talking about. And what it does is it takes all those articles combined and figures out an average. So they have Trey Smith projected at 4 years, $85 million. They have Ronnie Staley projected at 2 year, $41 million, if that's something the Bears are interested in. And then they have Drew Dahlman projected at 4 year, $46 to $48 million. So you're pretty much spot on with all those contracts. I mean, obviously, you guys, this is all speculation. We have no idea which way the Bears are going to go in free agency or the draft. But, I mean, if he could pull off something like Trey Smith, Drew Dahlman, and Josh Sweat, that would be a great offseason for the Chicago Bears. What the Chicago Bears have done in recent past, specifically Ryanpoles, is they seem like they're signing more quantity of players instead of quality players. You know, when you're talking about a rebuild, the team who had to rebuild the roster from scratch, and we all know that Ryanpoles pretty much got rid of almost every single player that Ryan Pace brought here. That's common. You're going to see them do a bunch of really cheap signings to kind of fill the roster. But the Bears are at a point now where they brought in this head coach and Ben Johnson, the guy that everybody thought was the right hire, the guy that everybody else wanted in the NFL. They have their quarterback in Caleb Williams, their number one receiver of the future in Rome Odunze or DJ Moore, number one, number two, vice versa. It doesn't really matter. So now is the time to start signing blue chip quality players in free agency. So for sure, you'd like to see the Bears go after Trey Smith. He is the number 2 overall ranked free agent, and that includes every position in the NFL. He is the general consensus number 2 overall free agent. You'd like to see the Bears take a run at him. The Bears need to shore up the offensive line. The most important thing for the Chicago Bears going forward is the development of Caleb Williams. The only way he's going to do that, the only way you're going to get the most out of him is to protect him, keep him standing up straight. Now, listen, I'm not one of those guys that think the Bears have to address all 4 of the offensive line positions we've been talking about. Braxton Jones at left tackle, left guard, center, and right guard. But you'd certainly like to see them at least address 3. That way, if Braxton Jones does continue to play at like an average level or even a little bit below average, you put a guard next to him who can kind of pick up some of the slack, right? Another thing you're not going to see with the Bears anymore when it comes to Ben Johnson being the new coach, you're not going to see these tackles left on an island very often. I mean, and the Bears did that more than any other team in the NFL last year. These guys didn't get any chip help from the tight ends or running backs. They were basically left by themselves. They had to protect one-on-one. And you know what? To be honest with you guys, Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright held their own in those situations, but you're not going to see a lot of that this year. So you don't necessarily have to replace Braxton Jones this year, but you'd like to see them shore up the interior of that offensive line. If the Bears plan on making the playoffs anytime soon, they're going to run into guys like Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and these monsters that we've been talking about all offseason. So the Bears do need to sign, at least for me in particular, a center and at least one really good guard. So you'd like to see them go after Trey Smith and Drew Dahlman for sure, no doubt about it. And the reason I say center is because I don't think the Bears are in a position where they could draft a rookie center and let him go through his growing pains in Caleb Williams' second year. Now, if Caleb Williams was a consummate professional, had been playing in the NFL for 20 years, and he can kind of oversee the deficiencies of a center, he can kind of run the offense on his own, that'd be one thing. But he's a young player learning a brand new offense, again, with a brand new coach and a brand new offensive coordinator. He needs help from a veteran center. Now, if the Bears want to draft a center at some point and stick him on the bench and let him learn from a guy like Drew Dahlman, or even if you, Sean, like those guys you've been talking about in the past, like Kelly from the Colts, or if they, for some reason they decided to keep Coleman Shelton here, that so be it. I mean, let's be honest, guys, this is not a great free agency class for offensive linemen. So the Bears are going to have to target those top guys. I mean, if you want to make an impact on this offensive line, you got to go target those top guys. The guy I think the Bears cannot walk away out of this free agency without is Trey Smith. I think the Bears absolutely need a guy like that on the offensive line. There's no doubt. I mean, I know it's the easy way out. I know it's the obvious pick, but they need to go get him.
He's the most likely one to leave too. I mean, honestly, I don't think Dahlman leaves Atlanta. You just don't let a center that good walk away from your team. You do whatever you can to sign him. And those are all good points. I think everybody in Chicago wants to see Trey Smith here. I think it's doable too. We were talking before the show started. You know, we got some connections here now in with Eric Bieniemy, with his days in Kansas City and his obvious connections and working with very closely as a coordinator with Trey Smith. So I think, Sean, you said Trey Smith literally said, I love that guy. He's the reason why I'm so good. So, and I actually heard on the CHGO podcast during the Super Bowl, they had Kyle Long on there. And Kyle Long was talking about his time with Bieniemy and how Eric Bieniemy is just a straight up dog. Every player who's ever played for him loves the guy to death. And he's very detail oriented. OTAs are not like optional. You have to go to OTAs. You should be working out and doing your own OTAs before OTAs. And then you've got mini camp. You better be there for that too. He goes, literally everything should be taken seriously because you're a professional. It's not like, hey, this is a half day or whatever. If you want to win the Super Bowl, you have to be very detail oriented. You have to want to work and you have to want to get better.
Yeah. And, you know, as Kyle said, the one guy here we can't walk away, we would not like to walk away without is Trey Smith. Yeah. But we do have some other guards that are options. And I put together a little 4-shot window of these guys in case we don't get the big fish, which would be Trey Smith this offseason. So we have some really good numbers on some of these guys as well. So if you look at Will Fries did get hurt during the year, but before he got hurt and missed the rest of the season, you could see he was having a fantastic season for the Colts. He's also now a free agent. Gentleman playing in the Super Bowl as well, Mr. Mekhi Becton. He ranked 21st overall at the position. A guy, if you're looking because you have so many parts, maybe you get him on a cheaper deal than you will be able to sign a Trey Smith. And I threw Kevin Zeitler on there, the 34-year-old giant that's 6'4", 340 pounds, wound up ranking overall as the 5th best center in the league. Now, I was looking into him a little bit, and they said that he would be looking for nothing more than a 1-year, $6 million contract, exactly what he signed last year in Detroit. So there's a possibility you can get him for 1 year, $4 million. He has that relationship with Ben Johnson. And I believe his birthday's in December, so he'll be 34 for the majority of the year, be turning 35 towards the end of the season. So if for some reason the Bears can't get out, these other guys right here seem to
Mekhi Becton might be the heaviest guard I've ever seen.
360.
He's almost 370 pounds. Jesus.
And you're probably lying about it too. He's probably 375.
The one thing I do like about the three is their age, man. I mean, obviously, Kevin Zeitler would be more of a bridge type player if you signed him. If you brought him here, he'd be a guy that you signed to 1, maybe 2-year contract, hoping that you could draft and develop a young guard to replace him at some point. Because, man, the NFL is unforgiving when you get in your mid to late 30s.
And I agree. Dustin likes Fries. He said those are solid options, better than what we have now for sure. I agree. And the thing when it comes to like Zeitler or Becton, maybe we get those guys just a little bit cheaper, and they structure some other money, because at some point you're going to have to get a left tackle. I didn't do any left tackles because we know we're stuck between Staley and what's the other guy?
Cam Robinson.
Cam Robinson, yeah,
or Braxton Jones.
or Braxton Jones, yeah.
Honestly, Braxton Jones graded out pretty well when he was healthy. His big problem was he didn't play half the season.
Yeah, and I agree with Dustin.
Yeah, but Braxton Jones still struggles with the bull rush. He still struggles with quick defenders who can do quick spin moves, stuff like that. I mean, Braxton Jones is probably an average tackle at best, but I do think a guy like Ben Johnson, and then obviously Rocher, the offensive line coach, and then like you said, Jay, Eric Bieniemy, just the coaches on this offense staff, they could probably get the most out of Braxton Jones. I don't know if we've yet seen the ceiling for Braxton Jones, and I think when these guys get here, if you decided to keep him there, you would see him play his best since being drafted by the Chicago Bears. But ultimately, just because Caleb Williams is right-hand quarterback, that's his blind side, you'd like to see them upgrade the left tackle position at some point. Now, obviously, if there's not a left tackle they love in the draft, I would say you'd stick with Braxton Jones and try to fix the interior of that offensive line. Yeah. But at some point, you'd like to see them upgrade over Braxton Jones. I mean, you guys tell me, do you guys want to see them extend Braxton Jones next year when his contract is up?
I'd rather have a better option.
Yeah. I like the story, but I mean, his weaknesses are glaring. And and in this Myles Garrett, and obviously this Myles Garrett thing, it's hypothetical, but say the Lions did end up making a deal and bringing him in. Now you got Hutchinson and Garrett on each side. Either of those guys are going to eat Braxton Jones for breakfast, unfortunately. Oh, yeah. So I would like somebody else that would be a little bit better.
Dustin says, hell no on a Braxton Jones contract extension.
And I agree with Dustin up here too when he said you don't have to break the bank to address the guard position. Smith would obviously be a dream, but it's not the be all end all. And it's not, because I look at some of those other guys and some of their numbers, and they're really not bad. And as we were going on there and going back to down here with Drew Dahlman at the $12.5 million, I can throw these guys up. These are the centers that just signed contracts over the past couple of years in the league. Ragnow re-upped with Detroit. Creed Humphrey obviously broke the bank. Drew Dahlman is going to be a free agent, and Biotish signed last year. He signed a 3-year, $30 million deal. Ragnow's making $13.5 million. And then you obviously have Creed Humphrey at 18, but obviously you can see there's a big disparity between Creed Humphrey and Dahlman. He's a little bit closer to Ragnow. So that's kind of why I went with that, $12.5 million range for Drew Dahlman, kind I think that would be fair in the market. I mean, what do you guys think about that? When you look at those numbers and see, hey, man, this guy's kind of right where Frank Ragnow is. And I think Ragnow signed a 4-year, I can't remember, but he's making $13.5 million a year. So I can tell you right now, he signed
I put him at that. I put him at that because he's a premier center, and so is Ragnow. So he's got to be somewhere near, at, or above, right? And the trend is in the NFL, no matter how good you are, if you're somewhere near the top, you want the best money possible. So everybody loves to reset the market.
And it's a pattern that will never change, guys. Every single year in free agency, those standards for whatever position you're talking about are going to go up and up and up. We see it every single year. Yeah. Every year, a new quarterback or a new receiver or a new offensive lineman sets the new standards, what these guys are owed, and their new contract expectations. I mean,
right.
I don't think that Drew Dalman's the best center in football, but I think he's certainly the best center available in free agency. And I think he's serviceable and would be good enough to put in front of Caleb Williams and be your center for the next 3 or 4 years. And like I said, if the Bears absolutely feel it's necessary, then go draft one and put him on the bench and let him learn while Drew Dalman's there starting. But I do agree with Jay. It's going to be tough to pry him away from Atlanta, man. That's not very often that teams just let their centers walk in free agency, especially when they just drafted a quarterback in the first round who looks like is going to be the starter there for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to pry him from Atlanta, but it would be awesome if the Bears could somehow pull off signing Trey Smith and Drew Dalman. That's like a off-season dream, right? I mean,
yeah, and you want to know the truth when it really comes down to Drew Dalman, the Atlanta Falcons have some decisions to make because they are in cap hell. They have one of the worst cap situations in the league. And obviously you can move some assets around if this guy wants to take a pay cut, but if they can only offer him 10 and the Bears are like, hey, we're giving you 12.5, I think he's going to take the extra 2.5 million and go on his way. And obviously, guys, we're all hopeful that this is what could happen. And this is all pure speculation, but yeah, I'm crossing my fingers here. And for me, honestly, I'm kind of thinking the left tackle position is not going to be one that's addressed unless they address it in the draft. I don't want Cam Robinson.
Ideal. You should. Ryan Poles said it when he got here. Our goal is to draft premium positions: cornerback, quarterback, wide receiver, defensive end, tackle in the draft, so we can get them on cheap rookie deals, as opposed to signing a guy in free agency who's going to cost you $140 million. A guy like Trent Williams. You don't like to see the Bears handicap themselves like that. I think what Ryan Poles has done so far, drafting or signing guys like linebackers and backup tight ends, running backs. Those are the kind of guys you want to see signed in free agency because they're really not going to break the bank. I mean, unless you're going for a guy like Saquon Barkley, which the Bears yesterday we find out we're pretty close to signing Saquon Barkley as well.
I got to touch on this, Zach. I'm a huge card collector. That is freaking awesome, dude. That is awesome. That is amazing. The rookie patch, the Bowers, you got a Bucky, a Neighbors. Jesus, that is like the ultimate box, dude. I'm so jealous.
He got all 3 of the receivers. He got Neighbors, Rome, and MHJ. That's the luckiest box I've ever seen.
That is amazing, dude.
He spent $100 for a $20,000 box. Good job. Yeah. Nice find, man.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I don't disagree with Dustin. He said just a few minutes ago, you'd rather trade for Myles Garrett than go let him go to another team in the division, which I don't disagree with. But
that's a good segue. First of all, thank you everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate you guys. If it wasn't for you guys, we would just be here talking to ourselves. So thanks for joining us, Plank, Zach, Dustin, James, Breaking News, Bruce, all you guys. We obviously appreciate you. And Sean, that's a perfect segue to talk about. Didn't you want to talk a little bit about Trey?
Hold on 1 second. Thank you, everybody. You guys are the stars of the show. So.
Hendrickson and Myles Garrett, and what we think, if we think the Bears should address the defensive end position and by trade or draft or free agency.
I'm a Josh Sweat fan. I know he's not Myles Garrett, but you put him on the other side of that line, you're better. You're 100% better. So.
So here's my problem with this, because obviously Sean told us this morning that there's been some whispers or rumors about the Cincinnati Bengals trading Trey Hendrickson The
Yeah.
Cincinnati Bengals are also kind of strapped for cash, and they still have to sign Jamar Chase. So they're going to, and T. Higgins is going to be a free agent this season as well. So they're in some trouble. So signing a guy like, you guys, I don't know if you guys heard or not, but Trey Hendrickson is asking for them to restructure, sign him to an extension right now and give him more money because he thinks he's worth more than he's getting paid, which he probably is. I mean, Trey Hendrickson
17
right
and a
now,
half sacks. Hell yeah, he is.
yeah, he's on a 4-year, $60 million deal, and he has back-to-back 17 and a half sack seasons. So, yeah, he's obviously worth more than he's getting paid right now. But here's the problem I have with trading for a guy like Trey Hendrickson. So, first of all, he's considered one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. So you're going to have to give up draft capital for him. I mean, it's not like they're going to take a third-round pick for a guy who finished first in the NFL in sacks last season. He's 30 years old, and he's on an expiring contract. So you would be extending this guy after the trade. I mean, that would be the only way to trade for him, right? You'd have to extend him, or you'd be trading these picks away for a rental. You'd be trading for a guy who you have to extend who's already in his 30s. By the time his extension with the Chicago Bears starts,
and then pay him.
31 years old. He'll be 31 years old. I went down the list of the top 15 pass rushers in the NFL today, guys, and there was 5 guys on that list that were drafted later than the first round. It is possible to go find a stud defensive end in the second, third, or fourth round. It's been done. Max Crosby was a 4th-round pick 106. Trey Hendrickson himself was a 3rd-round pick 103. Even DeMarcus Lawrence was a 2nd-round pick 34. Even some of the guys like TJ Watt. TJ Watt was the 30th pick in the first round. So the Bears have the draft capital, those 2 second-round picks, to trade back up into the late into the first round or trade for the first pick in the second round. I don't think the Bears should go trade for a guy like Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson. Now, listen, if this was a different situation and the Bears had all these holes plugged except for defensive end and they felt like they were competing for a Super Bowl in 2025, I'm all for it, man. We've seen this before. We saw the Cubs do it with Aroldis Chapman, where they gave away young talent to get a closer here, and all that matters is they won a Super Bowl, or I mean, they won a World Series, and they did it, right? They did it, so it was worth it. Even though you lost some of your best prospects, it was worth it. I don't think the Bears are anywhere near that. I don't think the Bears are going to win a Super Bowl with Myles Garrett's 2 years left on his contract. I think they'd have to extend him for him to be on this team when the Bears are competing for a Super Bowl. I think the same can be said about Trey Hendrickson. And if you're talking about guys who are going to be at 32, 33, 34 years old by the time you're extending them and competing for a Super Bowl, I'd rather see them go into the draft, the 2nd, 3rd round, try to find a defensive end in there, try to find a stud, and groom him into being one of the best. And even if he can't reach the heights of a guy like Myles Garrett, who's obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer, at least you're not breaking the bank and you're not losing draft capital for a team that has so many needs already, right? I mean, and I love both those guys. I love Myles Garrett and I love Trey Hendrickson. I think those are the 2 of the best defensive players in the NFL. I just don't think the Bears are in the right position to go get one of those guys. You know, Dustin says, well, you'd rather go get a guy like Myles Garrett than see him go to Detroit. But to be honest with you guys, he's going to be in Detroit for 2 years. That's the 2 years he has left on his contract. I don't think the Bears are going to be competing for a Super Bowl in 2 years anyway. Detroit's probably going to win that division for the next 2 years, regardless of whether or not the Bears get Myles Garrett. So at this point, what are you doing? I mean, you're basically just selling tickets. I mean, obviously you'd like to see this team instill winning culture at some point, and Myles Garrett or Trey Hendrickson would have a big part in doing that and contributing to that. But I just don't – I'm thinking about the future. If I'm Ryan Poles, I'm thinking about the future. Draft capital and salary cap. That's what I want. And the Bears should be like these teams who have had sustained success, like the Patriots and Packers, who are just a revolving door of young talent. You let your talent walk and you go get another guy in the draft to replace them. That's what the Bears should be doing year in and year out. That's time to see the Bears start drafting well. Hopefully it starts with Ben Johnson.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm with Scott. It's not that if the Bears were in the Lions situation, I think we're all on the same page. I'd be all over it. I don't want to give up the capital. Good teams build through the draft. Look at the Steelers. Look at the Eagles. Look at what the Chiefs are going to have to do.
Look at the Lions.
Look at the Lions. I mean, you build through the draft. You get this thing to where you can continuously sustain success, and you only do that through the NFL draft. And you can't throw money at the problem in the NFL is basically what I'm saying. You can.
And you know what? We'll get into it in another day, but I think edge and defensive tackle is pretty deep this draft. So, it's going to be way cheaper to draft the guy. It just is. And honestly, you might get a younger, better talent anyways. Maybe not Myles Garrett level, but, if you could find another Javon Dexter or, haven't seemed to really
or
draft
Max Crosby in the 4th round. A Max Crosby in the 4th round, or a Trey Hendrickson in the 3rd round. Either one of those guys. I mean, both those guys are late picks. I mean, and you guys, I mean, at some point the Bears have to start focusing on developing their own. I mean, we saw the trade with Khalil Mack, it didn't work out. And you guys, today I went through and looked for all the biggest defensive players traded in NFL history, the stars. None of the teams that I saw who traded for defensive stars, regardless of age or contract, none of them won a Super Bowl after trading for a guy like with the Khalil Mack trade you saw with the Chicago Bears. Not one of them. Not one. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's never been done, but I certainly can't think of any time that a team traded for. We saw the same thing with Jay Cutler. We traded half of our draft away and for Jay Cutler.
Got us to an NFC championship.
That's what it was going to take to win a Super Bowl. And then they were kind of handicapped by the salary, and then they could never complete the job. I want to see the Bears draft and develop. I want to see them be a team like Sean, like you said, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Steelers, the teams who will consistently make the playoffs.
Consistently have good drafts. Really quick, Zach agrees with us, says you got to develop talent to survive. Dustin, I'll touch on this right now. You both said you don't trust polls in the draft. I haven't trusted polls in the draft, but I trust the people that have been hired around him now.
Yeah, I think he brought in some help.
Yes.
They're going to say, hey, these are the traits I'm looking for. This is what I want. I don't need a big guy, or I need a big guy, or I don't need a fast guy, or I need a fast guy. You have actual smart people now helping guide him into what he needs or they need for this team, opposed to a guy who, by all accords, is a really nice guy. But Eberflus, I don't think he was that smart.
Well, you guys, and Scott said it perfectly right here. This draft is different for polls. Johnson and Allen are in his ear as opposed to Eberflus and Waldron. I mean, is that not enough said right there?
100% correct, dude.
If Eberflus and Waldron had any input in the draft, no wonder the Bears sucked.
and you know what? Here's Zach's bringing up. We're not going to get into the defensive side of the ball, but this guy is a guy. He just had a really good Senior Bowl. Walker out of Kentucky. And he does look like a guy that will go a little bit later that you could probably get as a rotational piece. Yeah. I mean, now if you draft the Walker at 6'7", 340, you have somebody else you compare with Billings. Now you have a nice rotation. You got a little depth. This is what we need to see. So in speaking of which, do we want to get into some of our favorite guys? Really quick, I wanted to touch on Drew Dalman really quick. If he does happen to escape out of Atlanta, he is one of the best run blocking centers in the entire NFL, and you have to trust our new coaches to help develop him into a better pass blocker. But with that being said, Drew Dalman is it if you're going for a center. I mean, unless you want to take Ryan Kelly, and Ryan Kelly, for all intents and purposes, had a down year this year. So, and he's long in the tooth.
Real quick,
listen, I've been saying it for a while, man. But that Brady Christensen guy out of the Panthers, he's a really versatile lineman. That if you're not going to be able to land, that premier stud center in the free agency, he's a guy that probably will leave there that we can get. That is actually. I think he graded like where did I have him? He graded pretty high, 27, but I think he was still 5 or 6 better than Coleman Shelton, and he can play guard too. So if you draft a center, which I don't know if it's a really good year for centers in the draft, but you could put him in for a year or two and move him to guard or move him to wherever, because I'm not sure, man, guys, I'm just really not sure that this offensive line is going to look that much different than it does right now, unless they draft some super studs. So I don't think they're really going to pick guys up in the free agency.
Another guy who's out there that people aren't talking about, but he had a bad year last year. This is the only bad year he's had in his career, and he came off a major injury. It was Connor Williams, and he's going to be a free agent as well. And that's the guy the Bears can keep their eyes on. Now, listen, I understand he had a bad season, but so did Kirk Cousins. Obviously, so did Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, these injuries impact these guys for for the near future, the year afterwards. It's not surprising at all, especially some of the injuries we've seen, like the Achilles tear for Aaron Rodgers. It's not surprising at all that the guy comes out and has one of his down seasons the next year, but it certainly wouldn't give up on a guy like Connor Williams. But Sean, real quick, before we get into the draft and who our favorite offensive linemen are, the Bears guys have 8 draft picks in 2025. They have round 1, pick 10, round 2, pick 39, round 2, pick 41, round 3, pick 72, round 5, pick 147, round 6, pick 194, round 7, pick 233, and round 7, pick 244. So they do have quite a bit of draft capital. And then the guys, we've talked about this before, if Ian Cunningham decides he's going to take that Jacksonville job, which to me, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he likes the structure there. I don't think he likes anything about that franchise. I don't think he's going to leave the Bears. But if he does, the Bears will get another third-round pick in this draft and another third-round pick in next year's draft. But Sean, dive into it for us, Sean. Get us started.
Well, really quick too, we do have to remember, and Kyle, you touched on this on Monday. As of January 2025, the Chicago Bears only have 34 players on the contract for the 2025 season.
We're the least of any team in the NFL.
Yeah, the least of any team. And really quick, I just want to, they lost Keenan Allen, Darrell Taylor, Coleman Shelton, Tevin Jenkins, Travis Homer, Lewis, Scales, Sanborn, Borum, Jalen Jones, Josh Blackwell, Jacob Martin, DeAndre Carter, Matt Pryor, Brian Cowart, Scott Daly, Chris Williams, Stephon Carlson, Daniel Hardy, Doug Kramer, Bill Murray, Douglas Coleman, Adrian Colbert, Tre'Davious Moore, I can't say his name, Darrington Evans, Jack Curhan, Jonathan Ford, Amir Speed, Tommy Sweeney, Colin Johnson. A lot of these guys we don't care about.
Not gonna work here anymore.
Yeah, not gonna work here anymore.
There's maybe one name on that list where I'm like, obviously they're going to have to replace Jack Sanborn. He was a starter for them, but
yeah,
I don't think Jack Sanborn was one of the best of his position. I don't think it's gonna be tough to do. I will say though, guys, with how little, what's up, Lauren? How you doing, man? With how little amount of players the Bears have under contract, you're probably going to see some undrafted free agents, or really cheap signings for the starting or on this roster. Now, you would hope
like
that
a
the
Jack Sanborn
on offense and the 11 starters on defense will probably be guys that are signed to multi-year contracts and are good starters in the NFL. But they are going to have some problems with depth, no doubt about it. I mean, they have the most roster vacancies of any team in the NFL going into 2025.
Yes, 98% of that list Sean just said, though, those guys are all going to be cheap. So you could probably sign most of those guys. Some of them, I'm sure, are practice squad guys.
I'm saying just based off the fact that they're a little bit older than the undrafted free agents, I'd take the undrafted free agent, right? At least you got youth on their side, and maybe you can teach them to become better players. The guys you just talked about, most of them have been in the NFL for a few seasons now. None of them are worth a damn. So to me, if I were the Bears, I would focus on trying to find guys late in the draft, and like we talked about, Jason, maybe the Bears trade back out of the 10th spot and add more draft picks. I mean, they're going to try to add draft as many players as they possibly can this season. So
I think that's what they should do. I think it's a smart move because you know what? Your running backs are great, but it's not your greatest need. You need depth at both offensive line and defensive line. You could probably add another DB. We talked about that last week. There's a lot of things that they need to do. And if you could trade down to maybe 15 or 16, you're still going to get a pretty quality player there, but maybe you pick up that extra third or another second or something else. It's going to be very valuable because I think in every draft, real meat and bones where teams make or break their entire team is in that second to fourth round area there. That's where all the meat and potatoes is.
I will tell you, off of this list right here, the two guys I'd like to see back off of this list would be Josh Blackwell and Mr. Patrick Scales.
Yeah, and shout out to Lauren at River Street Tavern. Josh Blackwell, I'm a bartender at River Street Tavern. Josh Blackwell comes into River Street Tavern from time to time, and is a very, very, very nice guy. I would definitely, and every time Josh Blackwell's on the field, all he does is make plays. That interception he had early in the season, and then he had the return punt for a touchdown against the Packers to finish the season there. It's definitely a guy I'd like to see the Bears resign. And to be honest with you, I don't think he's going to be too expensive. So I don't know why they wouldn't. He's one of their best special teamers.
And really,
and Scales is your long snapper, right? So you kind of need that guy. You're going to sign him.
Yeah, or a new one.
I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, River Street Tavern. Thanks for checking in, Lauren. He says they got us on live at River Street right now. So hello, everyone at River Street. We love y'all. 102 North River Street. You can catch Kyle there most of the time. Obviously not on Wednesdays, but you catch him there Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So come on out. They got some of the best food in East Dundee. It's a great place to watch a ball game. And you can run into our sorry asses there every once in a while. So really quick too,
3 times a week. You don't know, maybe.
Ben Devine, a gentleman that I follow on the X app where we are live right now, he did some research. And he said, well, the Chicago Bears currently hold the 10th pick in the 2025 NFL draft. Recent history suggests it will be traded. Here's why. In the last 8 drafts, dating back to 2017, the 10th pick has been traded 7 times, making it the most targeted draft slot in the first round by far. Last year, the 10th pick was the only one traded up in the top 10. The last 7 years of draft selections at number 10 overall, McCarthy pick was traded. Darnell Wright, the Bears moved up, I believe, from 10 to 9.
Yeah,
Garrett
the Eagles
Wilson
moved up from 10 to 9 for Jalen Carter.
For Carter, sorry, correct.
Right.
And then you have Garrett Wilson. That was a trade up. Devonta Smith. 2020, there was no trade. 2019, it was Devin Bush. 2018, it was Josh Rosen. And 2017, the Miracle Man, the Super Bowl champion of champions, Patrick Mahomes. It's that with that being said, that pick has been traded 87.5% of the time in the last 8 years. Gentlemen, Jay, Kyle, what do you think the likelihood? And this is going to lead me right in. This is going to lead me into why I think I'm okay with the Bears trading the pick. But I want to ask you guys: do you think the Bears, because these left tackles aren't, they're considered blue chip, top of the line, the Bears trade down and still end up with possibly a left tackle, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, somewhere in there? Really quick, thank you, Ben Devine, for that great research. That was an awesome piece and a little bit of knowledge for us to talk about. So what do you guys think about the Bears trading out of that pick and trading down?
I'll tell you, I think it's the decision they should make. And you can argue with Poles' actual picks that he makes, but he seems to really understand the value of draft picks really, really well. I mean, look at the whole DJ Moore trade. He understands the value of picks. It's just, what is he going to do with them once he gets the picks that he has? So I'm all for it, and we need more. We need more picks, because if both your GM and your head coach believe in drafting, or developing through the draft and building through the draft, you do that with more picks. So I'm not against it. There's not a stud wide receiver we're going to get there. We don't really need one anyways. We don't need that really big, flashy guy. I think we all can agree with that. We've got talent on the team. What we need is guys that are going to be there a long, long time, guys that we're never going to hear their names of. That's what we want on the offensive line. You never want to hear their name. And I think you could still do that in the mid to late first round.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, obviously it's tough to speculate. We don't know what's going to be there at 10 when the Bears pick. So, I mean, I will say there are people saying that if Calvin Banks, obviously, guys, Calvin Banks is listed as a tackle. He was a tackle for Texas. But people are saying if he does get moved inside to guard, he's going to be one of the best guards in the NFL, and he would be considered a blue chip talent. He would be. There's people are saying he could be the next Quentin Nelson. If you believe that and you think he's going to be that guy, I would stay at 10 and draft him if he's still there, if he's available.
Right.
If not, and you don't think any of the guys who you're talking about here are worth that 10th pick, and obviously you guys, the NFL does this thing where they quantify picks by turning them into like cash considerably, how much they would that pick would be worth. So if the Bears think they can go trade that 10th pick back and get 2 or 3 picks that are worth much more than the 10th pick in the draft, and they don't like anybody there at 10 on the offensive line, yeah, I'd have no problem with them trading back at all. And you know what? For the first time ever, Sean, this is like the one time ever I could say I don't have a problem with Ryan Poles trading back. If you got to trade back, trade back. Go get some more. Like you said, Sean, this team has the least amount of players under contract of any team in the NFL. That's scary. I think right now, what is it, Sean? Yeah. 34 players they have under contract. You have to get 34 players plus an emergency quarterback. Yeah, they need to sign a lot of players this offseason. A lot.
And this is going to be my segue into saying I would trade back the pick, because my favorite lineman in this draft, unfortunately, it was the second week of October. It was week 7 of the college football season when this 6'6", 315-pound gentleman from the Ohio State University, Josh Simmons, blew his ACL. And I'll say this. Right now they have him as the 15th overall ranked player, number 3 at his position. He played 31 college games and had 1,855 snaps at the left tackle position. So if you can move down, grab some draft capital, slide back 13, 14, 15, and still end up with this guy, I think you're going to be looking really good. A little stuff going into week 7 when he got hurt. He was the number 1 projected left tackle in this draft. In the 7 weeks that he was there, he allowed 0 sacks. He had 0 hits, one hurry before suffering that unfortunate knee injury. Scouts say that if healthy, Simmons has the elite traits to be a premier franchise left tackle in the NFL. Before his injury, he started 26 consecutive games. He's proven, battle-tested. He's a top competitor. He has day one. The scouts are saying Simmons projects as a potential day one starter in the NFL. Teams looking for a long-term solution say Simmons is should be high on your draft board. He's a versatile, high football IQ, has the physical tools to make him a low-risk, high-reward prospect. Several scouts have compared him to a division rival, Christian Darrisaw of the Minnesota Vikings. Like Darrisaw, Simmons combines excellent athleticism with powerful run blocking and redefined passing protection skills. Obviously, the only thing we're worried about here is the medicals. He will have them. Unfortunately, gentlemen, it's a 6 to 8 month recovery from a torn ACL. It's 6 to 9 months. They said most people needing at least 8 to 9 months to fully recover and return to sports, depending on the severity of the tear and the individual's commitment to his physical therapy. So we have to take a look at these, but I love Joshua Simmons. This is the guy I want to anchor the left side of the Chicago Bears line and protect Caleb Williams' blind side. If there's a way we end up with him, and I know it sucks with the ACL because you're like, oh man, now we might have to wait for this guy. He might not be ready at the beginning of the season, but
he may fall to the second round though. He may be like a really great value pick.
Well, Sean, if I can add to it a little bit here. So yeah. I got all my information from nfldraftprospects.com. I just like the way they kind of
I do a lot of that too.
Yeah. So he is right now the position for tackle. He's the third ranked tackle in this draft. And Sean, and they said that on the website. The only reason is because of that injury. If not, he would have been the number one in the position. He is 87.9 player rating. He's 86 against the pass and 75 against the run. His major strength was imposing frame, ideal size for an NFL tackle, and his major weakness was tendency to commit penalties. He committed 25 penalties through 2 seasons. That's something that certainly these coaching staff could get cleaned up. Not really worried about the penalties. When he comes to the NFL, it's a different game. They're gonna focus on that. They'll hone in on that. But yeah, I mean, if this guy he's projected to go mid first round. That's what Draft Buzz says. If you can get him at 15, 16, I'd have no problem with the Bears trading back and drafting him. He is one of my favorite players in this draft, no doubt about it.
And Mr. Dennis Moody, thanks for joining the show. You give me about 5 minutes after Jay breaks down his first guy. I have some video and some wonderful comments on Mr. Donovan Jackson because he's one of my favorite guards in this draft and absolutely look rock solid when he was actually forced. He's a guard. He was forced to play left tackle. And I'm going to give you these numbers that he did against 3 of the best teams in the country in this football playoff. This guy was absolutely amazing. So who you got, Jay? Who's your first guy you got, man?
So the first guy I got, he's not very well known. He's probably a second or third round guy, right? He's at tackle. He's on the outside, but he's a pretty versatile guy. Has played both left and right tackle. He's out of Boston College. Ozzie Trapillo. I'm going to break down some of these stats. I had to read them because it reads like if you were to, like in Madden, come up with a guy, like this is like the left tackle you would make. So he's a mountain of a man. He's 6'8". Okay, but he's lean. He's super strong. He's only 309 pounds. I mean, 300 pounds is a lot, but for 6'8", it's not going to look as big. But he's quick. His feet are really, really quick. Some guys say that he's too big because being that big, he might be a little slower or his steps might be a little bit longer. But they're really short, and he really doesn't compete off the edge very much. I would say this: if you don't like really big, tall guys. I think you're crazy at tackle because if you guys remember Big Cat Williams, that guy was a monster of a man as well, and he had a pretty long career in the NFL. But let's go. He ran a 5'1" 40, so not bad for a guy who's 6'8" and 300 pounds.
That's actually pretty fast for a big guy, dude.
Pretty fast for a big guy. Now, here's the scouting report. So, mammoth frame that gives edge rushers fits, a stone wall and pass protection, heavy hands with a vice-like grip, allowing him to control the point of attack. His versatility allows him to play both left and right tackle positions. He's able to absorb bull rushes. He processes stunts and blitzes very well. He rarely gets caught out of position. He's a nasty finisher who looks to bury defenders and plays through the whistle. Iron Man durability. I think he literally played every game he started in college. Literally, this guy is he's not on the Brute Squad. He is the Brute Squad. And I'm telling you, for a second or third round pick, this guy's going to be a huge value, and he just might be somebody that you need at left tackle. And then you don't have to worry about Braxton Jones. And you know what? Maybe you develop from him for a year, and maybe Darnell Wright gets hurt. He can play right tackle. I mean, this is a guy, I don't see how we don't draft this guy. Even if we pick somebody else in the first round, I'd pick him up in the third. I mean, this guy is awesome. I love this dude.
What was his name again, Jay?
Ozzy Trapillo, Trapilo.
Okay, I got to say a little. We got Darius checking in. I just wanted to ask Broski Bear, were you saying that there's too much risk taking Josh Simmons? Is that what this this one was about?
That's when you
depends at the pick, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I look, I kind of agree and I kind of don't. I hate drafting an injured player, but I will say this guy, his projections and the analytics say this guy can be an anchor on the left side of your line for a decade. And if that's
you can rehab from a knee injury, guys. They do it all the time in the NFL. It's not like
Jason, where is
career's over.
Where is Ozzy Trapilo? Where is he projected to be drafted the second round?
I think probably more like third round.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the swing tackle is becoming one of those important positions in all the NFL. So, I mean, if the Bears aren't sold on Karan Amagaji, which I have a strong feeling Ben Johnson's not going to be sold on Karan Amagaji, I have no problem with them drafting two tackles, even if they're considered left tackles in the draft. And then, the more depth, the better. The Bears have ignored this offensive line for so long; they don't have any depth there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Bears spent 6 of their 8 draft picks on offensive linemen, and I would be happy if they did. I would not be upset about it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
the rest of the positions, running back, wide receiver. I mean, you guys at this point, those guys are luxuries. The goal is to protect your franchise player, your quarterback, and Caleb Williams. You want to make sure that he's not get sacked 68 times again. So if the Bears want to draft 5 offensive linemen in this draft, I'm all for it, man. I'm not upset. I will not be upset about it at all.
Mr. Mooney, we are going to break down all 3 of those guys here in just due time. I do want to get back, though, to, and I don't believe this has sound, so I can break this guy down as we look at this. This was Donovan Jackson's dominating performance in the national championship game, and I believe it switches a little bit to some of the other stuff he did. But Donovan Jackson is ranked 86th. He's position ranked 14. He has 47 college games, 2,377 college snaps. This guy was without a doubt the unsung MVP for the Ohio State Buckeyes during this run. As we stated just a little bit ago, he had to switch. He was forced to switch from left guard to left tackle in week 10 with 0 experience. In those 3 CFP games, he had 92 pass block snaps, 1 pressure, and 0 snaps. This guy seems to be extremely talented. He's a high-character individual. And like I just said, without a doubt, the unsung hero for the Ohio State Buckeyes, being able to come out of that guard position and get over to the left side, left tackle, and protect Will Howard's blind side. I mean, it can't go unsung to have the versatility of a guy who can play both positions and play them at the highest level. And that's exactly what Donovan Jackson did. And I'm not going to lie, I'm actually kind of surprised right now that he's a 3rd round selection based on what he did.
I know, but I certainly don't want Ohio State's right tackle. Did you watch the other side of that line? I don't know about that guy. You're the
so Donovan Jackson for me definitely climbed up my list, and just watching him. I mean, it was against Texas, it was against Tennessee, it was against Notre Dame. These were 3 top defenses in the CFP, and I mean,
3 top teams.
He went against James Pierce. I mean, this guy just. Unbelievable. Donovan Jackson definitely skyrocketed up my draft board. Kyle, do you have anything on Donovan Jackson?
I didn't really look at the guy, but just watching that tape, I tried to focus mostly on guys that we might not be so familiar with because, you can look on any draft board. Everybody's going to give you the top 10 guys. And sometimes those guys don't wind up being top 10 for some reason or another. So I always looked at the guys that would fall off. I didn't look at Donovan Jackson, but look, coming out of a Big Ten school, he's going to be playing, big guys. He's going to be playing elite pass rushers that are going to be pass rushing and probably playing in Pro Bowls in the NFL. So, anytime you can get somebody like that, even if he's not going to start, if you can get somebody like that in your lineman room, it's a win-win to me.
So I wanted to touch on this from Broski Bear really quick. Broski, I think you missed it. I don't think you were with us yet. We just went over before we started this that the number 10 pick in the last 8 years, 10 years has been traded 87% of the time. I was saying grab some draft capital and go back in the first round and grab Josh Simmons. I wasn't saying blow the number 10 pick on him. If the Bears stay at number 10, I obviously would not want them to draft an injured guy either. But if you fall back to 15, 16, 17, 18, even with this injury, most of these draft projections still have him going in between 15 and 18 in the first round. That's how much they think of this guy's talent, even with the bum knee. So, and again, he should be coming back right around June, July from this injury. So you might actually be able to get him in the camp, even if you have to slow play him. But I understand your fear, Broski, and I respect your opinion 100%, bro. I love you, man.
Well, I completely understand it. I mean, we did this with Karan Amagaji. He continued to sustain injuries. We did this with Tevin Jenkins. He continued to sustain injuries. I get it. I totally understand. But if the value is right for that pick, if you trade back to 16, 17, and for some reason Josh Simmons is still there, maybe teams are just weary about that knee.
Yeah,
I mean, like Jay said, draft Josh Simmons there, and then draft that left tackle Jay was to Ozzie that he was talking about in the third round, and then you got a backup plan. I mean, but yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys coming into the NFL who are being drafted out of college, a lot of these guys have sustained injuries at some point in their career, and some maybe high school, some early in their college careers, some of them you don't even know about.
But, everybody gets injured.
These guys are Greek gods. They have worked out their entire lives. They're in almost perfect condition. These are the guys. If anybody can overcome these injuries, it's somebody like this. But Sean.
Kyle, give me
I want to talk about Kelvin Banks. And I know, like Jay said, he's an obvious one. When you look at draft boards, he's near the top. He is the number 1 ranked offensive lineman in the NFL draft. The reason I like Kelvin Banks is because, like Sean said, you hear a lot of draft experts talking about the upcoming draft, and they're saying none of these offensive linemen are really blue chip talent players. There is no Trent Williams in this draft. But like I said, if the Bears decided to draft Kelvin Banks at 10 and move him into that left guard spot instead of left tackle, they are saying he's going to be a blue chip guard in the NFL, which is probably what's going to happen because he has very short arms for a tackle. So he's probably going to be moved to left guard. But just some information here on him real quick. Kelvin Banks is 6'4", 320 pounds. He was a tackle at Texas. He's projected to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. He has an overall player rating of 89.5. His position rank is 1. He is the only player of all the guys I looked at draftbuzz.com who has 100 pass block rating in college, 100 pass block rating in college, and an 88 run block rating in college. So he certainly doesn't get any worse when it comes to the run. And his major strength is he's considered a masterful technician and can master any position. The Bears would move him. So if the Bears decide to move him to guard, it's saying he's kind of like a utility player. He's the king of adversity. If they decide to move him to guard, he would have no problem making that transition. The only weakness they had listed for him, one of the only 2 weaknesses they had listed for him was he lacks ideal height and and he's below average arm length. But that's what I'm talking about. If you draft him, you moved him to guard, then all of a sudden he doesn't lack height and he doesn't have below average arm length. So I mean, if this guy is here.
Hey, Kyle, you know who he becomes? Mekhi Becton.
Yeah, I mean, if this guy is there, if Kelvin Banks is there and you decide that you want him to replace Tevin Jenkins at left guard and he's going to be the next Quentin Nelson, I don't think the Bears can pass him up. I mean, if you can get a guy who Jay talks about a lot on this podcast is a guy who has like that Croots attitude, the guy who kind of is the leader of the pack, the captain, if you will, the guy who sets the tone, mean, pushes, after they pancake somebody, they finish the block by driving their forearm into their mask. Like a guy like that, a guy with attitude, Kelvin Banks is your guy. If the Bears are going to draft an offensive lineman at number 10, for me personally, guys, if you're going to stay at 10, it has to be Kelvin Banks. It has to be.
If he's there, absolutely. He's the best offensive lineman available in the draft.
And you guys, I mean, we all agree that he's the 99.9% chance this guy's getting moved to guard, right? I mean, it's almost a foregone conclusion. It's almost a foregone conclusion. He's not going to play tackle in the NFL. If you can go get a guy like Quentin Nelson at 10, do it. Quentin Nelson was drafted at number 6, and I don't think there's a Colts fan in the world who regrets that pick.
Yeah.
Sean, what do you got next?
Really quick, I just as long as we have a bunch of people in the building right now, I just want to run this past next weekend, guys. We're gonna start our what will we call it? I'm trying to look at the date. The 15th of February, Saturday morning, we have we're going to start the North Side 9. It's going to be a Chicago Cubs podcast. We are going to touch on the White Sox as well, if there is anything to talk about on the South Side of Chicago.
There's not.
No, we're gonna have two gentlemen joining us on this show. I'm very excited for Christian DeCosta to get on the show, and a Chicago Cubs writer by the name of Alex Pat. He works for Shorsky Sports. He does the Cubbies Crib, Chi-Town Sports 23. He just picked up a gig writing for the Chicago Blackhawks. He's going to be joining us to break down the Chicago Cubs season, what we expect, the ins and outs of this ball club. In my eyes, I think the Cubs are rounding into a fantastic offseason. We'll get into the Pacoda numbers, but that's going to be the 15th. Alex Pat's going to join us. Christian DeCosta will be on the show. Kyle's going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're going to get into the Chicago Cubs. I think we're going to do it about 11 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday, and we're going to try and keep that consistent throughout the baseball season. So if you guys have an opportunity, we'd love for you guys to join us next Saturday, the 15th. Break down some Cubs baseball. Pitchers and catchers are going to be showing up to camp here in just a couple of days. So we should have some stuff to talk about. And if you're following the Cubs, you'll see Matt Shaw's already there. Nico Horner's already there. A lot of the position players, they're not waiting for their due date. They're there right now. And that, as a Cubs fan, makes me really, really happy. So,
yeah, also, guys, the most people we've ever had watching on Wednesday night, we really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please, if you haven't already, hit that like, subscribe button. Please share this with your friends if you guys enjoy listening to us. To answer Dennis Mooney's question here, he says, do you think Banks would be a better guard than Tyler Booker? Yes, I think Calvin Banks is the best offensive lineman in this draft. I'll say it time and time again. I mean, even when you looked at the nfldraftprospects.com, the fact that he only had 2 weaknesses, and one of them would be negated if you moved him into guard. He only has 1 weakness. He was the only offensive lineman in the entire draft that they gave 100 pass protection rating to. I think this guy is going to be one of the best left guard or right guard, or wherever you decide to put him. Preferably left guard, since he's been used to playing left tackle in the NFL for a very long time. If Calvin Banks is there at 10 and the Bears draft him, I will not be upset in any way, shape, or form.
He's going to make Braxton Jones look better too.
Yeah, he's going to help out the tackle. Whoever did the Bears decide to put at left tackle there, he's going to help him out. He'll pick up some of the slack over there as well. I mean, this guy is an absolute mammoth of a man. 6'4", 320-pound guard is a big boy. Obviously, Sean, not like the 370-pounder you put on the screen there. That's pretty rare for a guard. Yeah, it's pretty rare that the guards start pushing 370 pounds. That is a mammoth of a man.
Yeah,
that's like Vince Wilfork playing guard in the NFL. Dude. Sean, what do you got next for us?
We're gonna get into one of my favorite prospects. Big boy, 370.
You're breaking up there.
Break up?
Yeah, you're breaking up, man.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you want to bump out of here and come back in real quick?
Yeah, let me bounce out.
Oh, you're better now.
Better?
Yeah, now it's off. Yeah, but now it's off. Now it's off though. It's your mouth and the volume are off when you talk.
Oh.
How we doing?
It's still off, man.
It's still off?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Having technical difficulties. One of you guys pick it up. I'm going to bounce out and bounce back in.
All right, Jay. Well,
give us one goer. I got a couple of guys.
Yeah, give us. You said you were doing kind of late round sleepers there, so let's hear them, man. I have the guys I haven't looked at.
I had something on Connerly, but I'll wait for Sean. One of the guys, I had 2 centers that I wanted to talk about. One of them is Jake Slaughter. He's a Florida guy. He's probably going to be a very, very, very late round guy. We're talking, 5-6 round, probably. But another big guy, 6'5", 308 lean. He a lot of people are saying he's a consensus number 3 center. Now, in a very not deep center draft, I don't know what that's really saying, but he's the number 1 guy is that the Brailsford guy. I didn't look too much into him, but he's supposed to be the consensus number 1. I think Slaughter might be a bargain guy. He's a super high football IQ guy, really big, very versatile as well. I think he can play guard as well. And the other guy that I really kind of start to fall in love with, seems like Sean's going to love this, but we were talking about running backs last week, and now we're talking about offensive linemen. And another guy I fell in love with was another Jayhawk, Bryce Foster. He's 6'5", 330, big boy, right? My only worry there is Caleb's not that tall, but I think if he's really good, he's going to make up for that in just pass protect. So who cares? His ideal size and mass. He benched 400 pounds in high school. Okay. A lot of scouts are saying that he's stronger than that now. He threw the shot put over 64 and a half feet. Let me just put that in perspective to you. A shot put weighs 16 pounds. So he threw a 16-pound rock almost 65 feet. I dare you to try it. Super durable, by the way, did not miss a game in 3 seasons at Kansas. So, there's guys out there, and I think there's value out there. And I, like Kyle was saying, I'm looking for the mean guy, right? I'm looking for a guy that wants to,
The tone setter.
bite your finger off, in the middle of a pile up. I want that dude because everybody's going to follow him. And usually those guys wind up being really good run blockers. But every once in a while, like some of these guys that you're going to see in the draft, they're also pretty good pass blockers because that's just the way football is evolving now. But I love mean dudes. They don't always have to be on the defensive line. You want mean dudes on the offensive line.
Yeah, so guys, when we get into the 5th, 6th, 7th rounds of the Bears draft in 2025, remember some of these names that Jay is saying, because he said some of these guys are going to fall pretty deep in this draft. And if the Bears don't feel like they've addressed the positions that they should have, or at least even the depth of the positions that they should have in the first three, 4 rounds, then they need to start looking at some of these guys in rounds 5, 6, and 7. So Jay, appreciate you looking at the guys that some people probably haven't even heard yet. Sean, who'd you have next? I think you're back on here, man.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Everything good?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
All right, here we go. We're going to go with this 6'6", 370-pound offensive tackle
Jesus.
from West Virginia, Wyatt Millema. This is someone who I believe is a day one starter out of this draft. I also think he's one of the safer linemen in this draft. He has a tremendous frame, as we just talked about, 6'6", 370 pounds. Scouts say he has incredible power, and he has an absolute bad temperament. So he played left tackle.
Sean, I'm looking at 2 different websites. They both have him listed at 317 pounds.
That's 317. That's what I said.
Oh, I thought you said 370. I'm like, dude,
no, 317. 317. 317.
This guy's a brick wall.
The scouts prefer Millema inside due to his lack of length and hip tightness, and he has potential starting guard upside, and he's been being compared as a guard to Quentin Nelson. They have him going late in the first round. He's the overall 32nd ranked prospect, 5th ranked at the position. He played 47 college games. He has 2,933 snaps. This is an absolute beast of a monster. He had 700 snaps at left tackle this season, 0 sacks, 0 hits, 6 hurries allowed. This is a plug-and-play guy. He's not going to last long in this draft, gentlemen. This guy might be the best lineman in this draft outside of maybe Kelvin Banks. He might push to be the best lineman in this draft.
Well, Sean, it's funny you say that because, like I said, Kelvin Banks is the only guy who had 100 pass block rating.
Yeah.
Wyatt Millema is number 2 with a 97 pass block rating. He's right behind, and his overall player rating is 87.2. Yeah, so he's right behind Kelvin Banks. I'm actually kind of surprised they have him ranked 5th. I thought if you look at the numbers, he should actually be ranked 3rd or 4th of all these guys.
Those scouting reports, everything all these stats that we give you guys, they're all going to change in like a month. I have
to tell you guys this though. I looked at his strengths and weaknesses, and Sean already run his strength. Elite pass blocker, allowed 0 sacks and QB hits in 2023. But this is exactly what it said for his weaknesses. I've never heard this phrase before. It says, lacks sand in his pants.
I saw that too, dude. They're just saying he doesn't play heavy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they said Wyatt Millema will benefit a lot from an NFL workout program where they can get him NFL strong and NFL.
Yeah,
that was his weakness. He lacks mass in his lower body. That's his number 1 weakness.
And I do want to send a shout out really quick to X. We still have people watching out there. For some reason, everything went haywire, disappeared off of this screen, but I'm watching us live on X, and we still have people out there. So we really appreciate the new Twitter community. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hopefully we won't have these technical difficulties next week.
Well, you guys are awesome, man. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. We appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank
Please
you.
feel free to comment so we can talk some more about this Bears offensive line or anything you guys want to talk about for that matter.
Yeah, if there's anybody up, it's back. It just popped up. It just popped back up there. There we go.
We just set a new record for people watching Wednesday night.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys. Like we said, man, you guys are the stars of the show. We love you guys. And again, if there's a guy that you guys want to talk about, because we got a few more to go, just put it in the
chat.
comments. Yep, and we'll look them up and we'll break them down and tell you what we think. Tell us what you think, because we want to hear from you more than you guys probably want to hear from us. Who we got next?
Well, I think one guy we have to talk about, guys, just because he is going to go in that 10 to 15 range is Will Campbell. And listen, Will Campbell, I'll make it clear right now, is not my favorite lineman in this draft. He's not. He's 6'6", 323 pounds. He's a tackle from LSU. Another guy that they're talking about probably moving to the guard position due to his below average arm length. He's projected to go mid-first round. He has an 88.9 player rating, so the second highest of anybody in this draft behind Calvin Banks. His position rank for tackle or offensive lineman is 2. He has a 94 pass block rating, 84 run block rating. So, Sean, to be honest with you, I like Millam better than I like Will Campbell. But
Me too.
His strengths are impressive, though, guys. It says masterful pass protector, plays with patience, and matches power rusher. So he cannot be bull rushed, is basically what they're saying. His weaknesses, once again, are below average arm strength. So this is another arm length. This is another one of those guys where if you feel like you want to draft somebody moving to guard, Will Campbell is certainly going to be an option there. The only thing I don't like about Will Campbell is I would not draft him at 10. I'll say it again. I would not draft him at 10. If I'm the Chicago Bears, I am trading back for Will Campbell. There's no way I'm using the 10th overall pick on Will Campbell. I do like him. I just think that there's 3 or 4 guys on this list I would take over Will Campbell. If you're gonna take the risk of drafting a tackle and moving him to guard, then just go get Calvin Banks. Don't be cute about it. If that's something you're willing to do and something you really want to do, then go get Calvin Banks and make him a guard. Like I said, I think Calvin Banks is the next Quentin Nelson. It's certainly a guy the Bears should keep their eye on, and if he's there at 10, I think he will certainly cross the Bears' mind for sure, no doubt about it.
And something to think about too, guys. Remember, the Ben Johnson has been preaching the run game first, right? Run game first. And if you can't run up the middle, you don't have a run game. And how do you bolster your run game? You put some big guards in there,
interior
right?
of the offensive line. The
guards
guards
are going to like punch you in the face.
Yeah.
And Banks is that dude.
And Jason, I heard you say this, and since Dennis Moody just requested it and they lead the show, we're going to get into Josh Cornley Jr. And I am going to give you guys what this gentleman did to Mr. Abdul Carter, who many believe will be the first, second overall pick in this draft. And here we go. He absolutely owned him in the Big Ten championship game. I mean, there he is pancaking him. I mean, this guy absolutely destroyed this guy throughout this entire football game. It's some fantastic tape, and there's a lot of good tape out there on Josh Cornley. Right now, he's a 36th overall ranked prospect, 7th ranked at the position. He's played 38 college games. He has 1,981 snaps. They said he added 10 pounds for the 2024 season. He got better in every asset of his game. He's obviously in the Big Ten, so he played against Abdul Carter. He played against the Ohio State Buckeyes. He played against some of the best phenomenal athletes that are going to be coming out of these schools and going into the draft. They say he's a phenomenal athlete. He's an amazing pass blocker, solid and run, quick feet, mirrors his ability. He has a nice anchor, great at redirecting skills. The one knock on him is they say they wish he was a little bit stronger and he was more violent. So they said arguably he might be one of the best prospects on tape. So,
Sean, real quick, he has an 87.1 player rating, 90 in the pass, and 77 in the run. So obviously they think the run is where he can improve the most.
Yes. Yeah. And he went up against Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, held his own. He allowed no sacks in those games. And on the film that we just watched, I got another one here. This is actually just from this weekend. He had an up and down Senior Bowl. And he got beat off of some of these plays. I mean, but I don't put too much stock into the Senior Bowl. You know what I mean? So, You know,
some of the best seniors weren't playing in that game because they played in the national championship. My thing with this kid is he's probably one of the better pass blockers in the game. And if you're looking at a tackle, you're probably a little bit more worried about pass blocking than you are run blocking. An interesting thing about him, though, if his freshman year, he was in high school, he was a running back, and then his sophomore year, just switched over to tackle. That sounds weird, but I guess just too big to be a running back. He's the type of guy I read a couple of times that some of the scouting reports said that he likes to die a slow death. And basically what that means is he's not super strong, but he has such good hands that he can fight off these edge rushers, and he'll give a little ground. He'll give a foot, he'll give another foot, and then he'll give another foot. But by that time, the ball's already out of the quarterback's hand and downfield. So, he's not going to necessarily stonewall a dude, which is probably why his run blocking isn't very high. But he's also a guy that's just going to, let an edge rusher go, deep on a bull rush, or get his hands up underneath that shin, and hopefully not draw a penalty. But he's a pretty good player, and honestly, don't be surprised if he's available in the second round for some reason. I don't know how some of these teams are going to grade some of these guys. This is just us.
Jay, the question is, how much sand does he have in his pants?
I don't know, but hopefully a couple of bags. The kid is good though. I like him. Don't be surprised if the Bears take him with one of those second round picks.
Yeah. Do you guys have another one? I have a couple of more. So
I think we should definitely talk about Tyler Booker, guys. I mean, this is the number 1 overall rated guard in the NFL draft. So you're talking about the guys you're not talking about the guys who are tackles, but people are talking about them moving to the guard position. You're talking about a guy coming out of college listed as a guard in the NFL draft. Tyler Booker is the number 9 overall offensive lineman prospect. He is 6'5", 325 pounds. He plays for Alabama, and he's projected to go early in the second round or late in the first round. He has an 86.9 overall player rating. He has 89 pass block rating and a 71 run block rating, so he can use work in the run game for sure. But I think part of that is the problem with the size. But they say that once he gets in the NFL workout program and he gains a little bit of weight, he'll be all right in the run game as well. He is by far the general consensus number 1 overall guard in the draft. His strength are his exceptional size for a guard, consistently moves defenders off the line of scrimmage, and his weaknesses are occasionally plays with high pad level, struggles against shorter defenders. So that's something obviously that the Bears would have to get cleaned up if they decided to draft Tyler Booker in the NFL draft. But I mean, listen, if the Bears can't address the offensive line with the 10th pick or in free agency, this is the guy you want to see them go after late first round, early second round, even if they have to trade up to do so. This is the guy you want to see them go after. I mean, at some point, you see Darius here says, please don't draft a guard at 10. Listen, guys, I know these aren't the sexy picks. Nobody wants to see the Bears draft guards or tackles, but at some point, like all the other teams in the NFL who are succeeding in the playoffs, the Lions, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Ravens, you have to start addressing the offensive line. I know that people want to see them take guys like Ashton GNT and all these other guys, but at the end of the day, the Bears, the main goal for the Chicago Bears this season needs to be the development of Caleb Williams. You have to draft guards and tackles at some point, guys. It has to.
You want to build a winning team, and it starts with an offensive line always.
Like Jason, how upset do you think that the Colts fans are that they drafted Quentin Nelson at number 6? I mean, the guy is an absolute tone setter. He's a beast. He is basically he was the entirety of the Colts offensive line for a good 2 years. Yeah. He was the only good thing about that line, and they were still ranked in the middle of the pack just because of how good he is. Listen, I'm not saying I'd like to see them draft a guard at 10, maybe trade back, but if Calvin Banks is there at 10, I'd be hard pressed to pass up on him. He's going to be a very good player in the development for a very, very long time. But
over 60 sacks, and the guy's got like a perfect pass block rating. Why wouldn't you want the guy? I mean, it makes sense.
I'll tell you guys this, man. If the Bears can pull off 83 all over again, when they took Covert 6th overall, they took Tom Thayer 91st overall, they took Bortz 219th. I mean, they got their Super Bowl, pretty much their entire Super Bowl offensive starting line in one freaking draft, man.
Yeah, that might be the best draft in the history of the NFL, Sean.
Yeah, and I mean, because they got Richard Dent at pick 203. They got Dave Durrison at pick 64. They got Mike Richardson at pick 63. I mean, if you go through this draft, their first 8 rounds, almost every single one of those players started on the 85 Super Bowl.
And made a Pro Bowl. And there was a couple Hall of Famers in there as well.
Richard Dent and Jimbo Covert are both Hall of Famers. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And Tom Thayer was a very underrated player. He was a very good player for a long time for the Chicago Bears as well.
Yeah. And just to add, I had this scout who said Booker blends his size, power, and athleticism, makes him one of the most intriguing prospects for the NFL. His experience in a pro-style offense should ease his transition to the next level, where he projects as a day one starter at guard. Booker's skill set is particularly well suited for power running schemes, which is his ability to generate movement at the line of scrimmage. So this guy, they're saying he has to refine his technique in pass blocking a little bit, but they're saying his upside is undeniable. This guy could be one of those guys that turns around and is a Quentin Nelson, like you just touched on. And I know, Darius, I just want to ask you, brother, if the Bears ended up with Quentin Nelson and they picked, what was Quentin Nelson, sixth overall pick? If they ended up with a guy like a Quentin Nelson at the 10th overall pick, are you going to really be upset that they took a guy like that at 10? I mean, I'm just saying,
a guy who makes your entire offensive line better. The entire line
makes Caleb Williams a 4,000-yard passer for the Bears. Like, you're not going to see him. You're not going to see their stats, guys, but you'll see Caleb doing better. You're going to see, oh my God, I kind of like our running backs now. Why are they good all of a sudden? Like, it's the offensive line is everything. It's everything in the world. If you want to build an offense, you have to start with the offensive line. I didn't make this up. It's not my philosophy. It's just the way it is.
I mean, look at the two of the most dominant teams in the NFL, the Eagles and Lions. All we talk about every time one of those teams comes up is how good their offensive line is. They have one of the best offensive lines. They have one of the best offensive lines. Their offensive lines on people. I mean, if you can get to the point where your offensive line is pushing guys off the ball so far that your running back's not being touched until he's 3 yards down the field already, you can run the ball the entire game. There's almost no way to beat those teams. Like I said, we've talked about this, guys. If the Eagles can run the ball the way that they have all year against the Chiefs, it's going to be a tough game for the Chiefs. It's going to be a very tough game for the Chiefs, especially because the Chiefs this is the most sacks Patrick Mahomes has ever taken in a single year, and he's about to face Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. So if the Eagles could just control the pace of that game by running the ball, it's going to be a tough game for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hey, I got a question for Sean. Sean, can you look something up for me real quick?
Sure.
Look up David Montgomery's most touchdowns in a season with the Bears, and then look up his most touchdowns in a season with the Lions.
I think it was last year with the Lions, or no, maybe the year before with the Lions.
He missed some time last year, so it would be the year before. Real quick, while Sean's doing that, guys, there's a guy I want to talk about. He is the number one rated center in this draft. So listed as a center going in the NFL draft. His name is Jake Majors. He's 6'3", 350.
I just put him up on my screen.
I'll just go over the basics, Sean. You can dive in. He's 6'3", 315 pounds. He plays for Texas. He's projected to go in the 4th round. So this is one of those guys we were talking about, guys. This is a guy you can go get and stick him on the bench and put him behind Drew Dalman for a couple of years and let him learn and develop. He is an 83.8 overall player rating, 97 pass block rating, 77 run block rating. So he does need to get better in the run game. His strengths are stonewall and pass protection, neutralizes interior rushers with exceptional technique. His weaknesses are he lacks prototypical size for a center and struggles against mammoth nose tackles. So, but you know what, guys? How many centers, even in the NFL, who are good centers, don't struggle against mammoth nose tackles? Guys like Jalen Carter. I mean, that's why guys like Jalen Carter are who they are. It's because they're so good. It's tough to stop them. But I mean, this is a guy that if he's still there in the 4th, 5th round, even late 3rd round, the Bears definitely need to keep an eye on him for sure. No doubt about it. I would love to see the Bears, if they could come out of this draft with a Tyler Booker and a Jake Majors, or, going free agency, get Trey Smith and add Jake Majors. You're talking about, I mean, they've addressed half their offensive line needs in those 2 picks alone, those 2 guys alone. So definitely somebody to keep your eye on in this draft for sure.
Yeah, and to back up Jake Majors, because I was just going to get into him, and great minds think alike. So thank you, Kyle. He allowed 0 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, and 12 hurries, and 908 snaps this year. He wound up as a 72.9 overall grade on PFF. The one thing that I took about reading,
and real quick, PFF is way harsh. It's a totally different grading scale than nfldraftprospects.com. It's a totally different grading scale.
Yeah, and as you said, Kyle, I think you said he was projected to go. I had him projected to go 2nd or 3rd round.
Draft Buzz says projected 4th, but you know what? That might just because the position.
Sure,
like, I know he's a very good player, but centers don't fly off the board in
NFL. The one thing that I read, because I went into some articles in Texas, the University of Texas today, when they were talking about this kid, and they said the one thing that this guy does is he makes all the calls at the line. He was pretty much running the offense for the Texas Longhorns. He pulls like a guard. He's very steady. This is a sleeper in this draft, a guy who could be like a Drew Dahlman, in a couple of years. He has some weaknesses, and boom, you have a good Bill Johnson, and you have the new guy. I can't remember his name right now. Hopefully coach him up into maybe being an all-pro Pro Bowler. No, the guy they just hired, the guy we talked about at the beginning of the show, Jeffries Garrett. Yes, thank you. So,
Dan Rocher is going to be there. Is their offensive line coach? So.
Yeah. Garrett's a defensive line coach.
Yes. Sorry, my head's a little twisted here.
Dan Rocher is the guy. I mean, he's the guy with 40 years coaching experience.
Yeah, 45 years.
He's well respected in the college and the NFL, so he's definitely going to get the most out of some of these offensive linemen we're talking about, for sure, no doubt about it. It should be an easy transition with this coaching staff.
There's a guy I'd like to talk about. He's actually on some of a lot of scouts' lists. Is that Gray Zabel?
Yes.
Out of North Dakota State. A couple of things about this dude. When I read up about him, he's a pretty impressive athlete. He's 6'6", 305, so he doesn't have to wait there. But weight to me doesn't really seem like that big of a deal, because once you're going into like an NFL program, they got nutritionists. You can gain weight. That's easy. He's let's see here. He played 4 out of the 5 O-line positions. Started them during his college career. He was a two-way starter in high school, so he played both offense and defense. He lettered in basketball and baseball in high school. He's probably like a 4th rounder, not that great, but he's another dude that's just like, he's one of those sleepers you hear about. If you start looking into offensive lines, he shows up as a sleeper on a lot of guys' lists that you might want to consider.
DraftBuzz.com has him as a late 1st round pick, early 2nd round pick.
So if I could jump in here really quick, his stock blew up at the Senior Bowl from start to finish. Gray Zabel dominated the week. He was outstanding on one-on-ones, and as Jay just touched on, he played at the Senior Bowl at both guard and center positions. So as Jay touched on, he's a very versatile, flexible starter that you could use probably at left guard, right guard, and center if need be.
And you know what, Jay? I'm glad you brought him up, because I stand corrected. He has an 87.2 overall player rating. He is the only other guy besides Banks who has 100 pass block rating and a 97 run block. Yeah, this guy is going in the 1st or 2nd round for sure. 100 pass block.
I think edge rusher is going to be running back, and edge rusher is going to be like the flashy thing in the draft in the 1st round. So don't be surprised if some of these guys that have really good value fall into the 2nd round, just because somebody wants that flashy edge rusher. Well, they want that. I got I got the next running back that's going to be Saquon Barkley. You don't know, but don't be surprised, man. He's on a lot of boards. Maybe he does go in the 1st round, but it all depends on where these guys fall. Some teams may not need a tackle, so they're not going to draft them.
And some teams might be scared away from these guys because they don't know what position they're going to play in the NFL. Just a guy like Kelly Banks plays, like Sean said. You said this guy played guard and center in the Senior Bowl, right? He was a tackle at North Dakota State. I mean, this guy has played every position on the offensive line. You have to decide where you're going to put him when you draft him. So some teams might steer away from guys like that. But another guy that Jay brought up that I would be just fine with the Bears drafting in the middle rounds if he makes it that far. If they could somehow pull off getting Banks or Booker and Gray Zabel, you're talking about. I mean, the offensive line improves immediately.
Guys, I think with those 2 2nd round picks, like, it's really conceivable that we could get a flashy player at 10, because Banks is probably going to go before 10, but. You could get that flashy guy or whatever, and then all of a sudden, the 2nd round, you get these 2 stud offensive linemen that you're like, holy shit, how do we wind up with these 2 guys? I mean, it's really possible that we could do quite well in these first 2 rounds.
Well, we know
Sean wants a 4th rounder, but whatever.
We know Sean wants Ashton Jeanty at number 10, so
yeah.
That kid from Neal, dude. I want Neal from Kansas.
And really quick, too, I did a little research, because I know a lot of people get scared off, and I talked some smack about drafting small kids from small schools, unknown. Karam Amadaji was the guy that was drafted, the lineman drafted from the small school last year. The year before that was Cody Mauch, plays for Tampa Bay. He ranked 18th at the guard position, 1,131 snaps, 2 sacks allowed. He was a second round, 48th overall pick. He also came out of North Dakota State. 22 was Corey Strange. He has flunked out of the league. 21 was Quinn Merez out of University of Whitewater, Wisconsin. He was a third round 89 pick. He was an 87.8 overall, third ranked in 24, 1,089 snaps. In 20, it was Robert Hunt. He was the 37th ranked. He came out of the University of Louisiana. He wasn't that great, 67.7 overall, 57.5 in pass pro, but he was a second round, 39th overall pick. And you go back to 2019, it was Titus Howard out of Alabama. Again, so-so, 41st ranked. But if you go deeper, 18, 17, 16, I mean, Ali Marpard, I think everyone remembers him. He was a Super Bowl champion. He had 61 starts in 101 games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was also out of a small school. So you can find these diamonds in the roughs from the small schools, especially at the lineman position. So...
And hopefully now we have a coaching staff that maybe can take a little bit more of a chance on a guy because we have confidence that we can develop them and coach them. See, part of being a coach is to coach a player. So, you can't just go in and say, all right, guys, here's the playbook, go execute. You have to show them where they're doing wrong, tell them, teach them how to do it better. It's coaching.
Yeah, and another guy that the Bears should keep their eye on, and a name that hasn't popped up in many drafts, is probably projected to be around a third round pick. But if the Bears can't address the offensive line deficiencies in either free agency or early in the draft, a guy they should keep their eye on is Tate Ratledge. He is a guard for Georgia. He's 6'6", 320 pounds. His position rank at guard is 2. He's supposedly the second best guard in the draft. He has an 84.8 overall player rating, 88 in pass blocking, 80 in run blocking. His strength is he's a powerful run blocker with the ability to generate movement at the point of attack. His weaknesses is he struggles with balance when overextending. You'd like to see something like that be coached out of him. You don't want to see these guys overextending anyway. So at some point, I mean, if the Bears get in the third round and they still have not addressed the guard position, this is a guy I would definitely keep my eye on. Like I said, you guys, I'd like to see at some point the Bears go for those blue chip type players, those guys in the first or second round. But if for some reason the draft just doesn't fall that way and they're stranded in the third round, these are the guys you want to keep your eye on. Another guy would be Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia. 2 guys who play in an NFL style offense. 2 guys I would definitely keep it. Dylan Fairchild, 6'5", 315 pounds. He's projected to go in third round as well. 84.1 player rating, 94 pass block rating, 77 run block rating. His strengths are he's plus pro technician with advanced hand placement. His weaknesses are he lacks ideal power at the point of attack. So any one of these guys you're getting in the third round, fourth round are going to be a little bit of a project. I mean, I wouldn't like to think as big of a project as like Grana Magaji, but guys you're certainly going to have to work with for a little bit. But I mean, like I said, you guys, if the Bears came into this draft and 5 of the 8 picks are offensive linemen, I'm not going to be disappointed about it in any way, shape, or form. Once you can find a way to protect Caleb Williams, then you can start focusing on the players like running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, guys who some people would consider like luxuries. But like Jason said, the quarterback is the most important position in American sports, certainly most important position in the NFL. Caleb Williams is the most important player on the Chicago Bears. That means that the second most important player on the Chicago Bears is his left tackle, guy who blocks this blind side. He's a right-handed quarterback. The Bears have to address this offensive line this offseason if they want Caleb to develop the way they expect him to develop. It has to be done in this offseason. I know people want defensive tackles. I know people want defensive ends. I know people want running backs. But before you even deal with any of that stuff, offensive line.
And I got I got a guy not from a small school, but from the jump around fourth quarter excitement out of Wisconsin, the left tackle Jack Nelson, fourth round projection, 126th overall rank, 25th at his position, 51 college games, 3,117 snaps. So this guy has definitely got the experience. Draft Buzz has his pass blocking at 84%, run blocking 75%. He is obviously a project. His profile is 83.3 out of 100. Some of these scouts on Jack Nelson say this is the type of lineman you win with. He even if he may not be the kind of lineman you build around, a 4-year starter at Wisconsin with experience at both guard and tackle. He's battle-tested technician who plays the game at a high level of consistency with football intelligence. While his physical traits might not wow you, the tape shows a player who knows how to get the job done, particularly in pass protection. It says Nelson has good arm length at 34 inches, but can struggle with lengthy edge rushers if his hand timing isn't precise, allowing defenders to get into his chest a little bit too often. In the run game, Nelson fires out of his stance with noticeable explosiveness and has shown that he can operate effectively in the outside zone schemes. However, on the second level, he often struggles to sustain blocks as smaller, quicker defenders can slip past him. So this is he ultimately projects in the NFL as a swing tackle with possibly some guard upside. I can't remember what was the size on this guy. He is 6'7", 316 pounds. He's out of Stoughton, Wisconsin, so he's probably hoping to get drafted by Green Bay. But Jack Nelson's obviously a guy that you draft later, and he's a project that you can work on. But having 4 years experience starting in the Big Ten, 3,000 snaps under your belt, he does have some quality traits to him. It's a guy that you can consider, especially if you strike out early and you don't get the tackle that you wanted in the draft, So
another guy that
I would say this too. I would, Sean preaches this a lot too. You want these guys that are in these big schools, right? These big programs that are running pro offenses, right, or pro style offenses, and you want them to be, going up against pro style defenses because they're going to translate into the NFL better. You're going to have to coach, things differently when these kids come in. And you're going to have to train them. That's the whole purpose of training camp, right? And OTAs and mini camps and all these other things. But if you're drafting a guy out of Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State, or there's a couple of kids from Indiana. Now, a lot of people say Indiana didn't have a lot of competition, but they're still playing in the Big Ten. They made it into the playoff. You want somebody that's going to be coming from those programs because they know how to play the position. They're going to be able to adapt more efficiently into the NFL system, and hopefully pretty quickly, because I've said this before too. O-lineman, it's a very difficult position to learn. It's not like defensive tackle where I'm just going to run straight forward at the quarterback. They have to learn everything there is to know about the offense. So it takes a few years for them to really get up to speed. So if you get one of those guys from the big programs, hopefully it takes 1 to 2 years instead of 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, another guy the Bears should keep their eye on late in the draft. And the only reason I say this is because this guy has he's been vocal about the fact that he wants to play with Caleb Williams. His name is Jonah Monheim. He's played a tackle, guard, and center for USC. He was obviously there with Caleb Williams for a couple of years. He's 6'5", 310 pounds. He's projected to be a 5th-round pick. He has an 83 overall player rating, a 78 pass block, and 73 run block. So obviously not one of the best linemen in this draft, the fact that he's projected to fall to the 5th round, but a guy who could come to Chicago, find some chemistry with Caleb Williams since he's played with him in the past, and it could certainly be a good backup here. The Bears, it's not just the starters in the offensive line they need to address. They're going to have to address the depth at some point. That's why Sean earlier in the show said he could probably see Ryan Bates as a cut candidate. I just don't see that just because of how little offensive linemen the Bears have on this roster. Maybe next year, but I expect Ryan Bates to be here next year just because the Bears just don't have any depth of position at all. I mean, they certainly can't rely on Larry Borum playing tackle for them if either of their tackles go down next year. That guy should not be playing in the NFL.
You know why?
Not on the Chicago Bears.
You know why? You know what you never do? Never trust a Missouri product. You just can't do it. And as I say that, I'm going to bring up Armand Membo, the left tackle from Missouri. He is unfortunately the 4th rated left tackle, 87.2 out of 100, pass blocking 90%, run blocking 85%.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
He's
Sean.
projected to go.
You don't like to admit it. His strength is he's super athletic, 18% body fat for a guy who weighs 314 pounds. He runs the 10-yard straight in 1.63. He has a 32-inch vertical, and he squatted 600 pounds. He's also
monsters. I noticed that too. There's a lot more leaner offensive linemen this year. But they're like, you look at their pictures and you watch them play, like that guy doesn't look like he's small because they're just they're just bigger and stronger. And I don't know if it's sports nutrition or working out. These kids, obviously
evolution.
they're probably the best at their position growing up their whole entire life. So, they're getting.
I'll maintain never trust anything that comes from Missouri.
What if they squat 600 pounds?
I do have one guy that we haven't talked about is Anthony Belton, a tackle out of NC State. He's 6'6", 336, so a big boy. He's a better pass blocker than a run blocker. He started out at Georgia Military Academy in high school and then, transferred. He's a smart dude, like a serious dude. In 438 pass blocking snaps, he only gave up 3 sacks. He 1 quarterback hit and 8 hurries. So, pretty good numbers there. He's probably like a 2nd or 3rd round pick too. But I think he's got a lot of upside, and if he gets coached well, that guy could be a perennial pro bowler too. There's so many sneaky good offensive linemen that you really just don't know until you know, and you get them in. And honestly, what I think is going to help the Bears most is with their experienced offensive staff. I'm hoping that a lot of the conversations isn't like going upward, but more linear when they're talking about like, hey, like Rusher, what kind of offensive lineman are you looking for? What kind of traits are you looking for? Let's evaluate our staff here. Now let's look at the draft and see who we can get. What about free agency? So I'm hoping that they're going to involve some of these really smart minds they got in the offensive rooms now, and hopefully it translates into better picks.
Yeah, well, certainly the player development for the Chicago Bears has been a problem over the last 10 seasons. I mean, even the fact that you see these guys who leave the Chicago Bears, maybe even guys that didn't even draft, but guys who leave the Chicago Bears and get better somewhere else. Like the Bears need to start finding ways to put these guys in position to succeed. There's no reason Tremaine Edmonds should be ranked one of the lowest middle linebackers in the NFL this season on Pro Football Focus. That guy was a perennial Pro Bowler in Buffalo. He struggled his first year, but once he got used to the NFL speed, he became a very good player. There's no reason that guy should be struggling in Chicago. They run the same style of defense. I think this coaching staff, you're going to start to see these guys get the most out of these players. Guys like Tyreek Stevens and guys like, even if Jack Sanborn was still here, I bet you his play would go up. Like I said, I've said this before, guys. You heard me say it. Even if the Bears kept the same offensive line they had from last year, I wouldn't be happy about it. I don't think it'd be a good situation for anybody in the Bears, but I think they would play better than they did last year because Shane Waldron certainly did not address the deficiencies of this offensive line. We had one of the worst offensive lines in football, and Shane Waldron is running plays where everybody on the field is going 30 yards downfield. Like, hey, Shane, Caleb doesn't have that time. He just doesn't have that time. This is not the offensive. You're running the wrong style of offense for this. We wanted to see slants, screens, dump offs. And how many times have you heard Bears fans complain about that stuff? Like, man, all we do is throw screens. Last year was the one time we were like, please God, throw screens. Get that ball out of his hand as fast as you can. And the Bears just neglected to do it. I don't think you're going to see that with this coaching staff. I think Ben Johnson's going to figure out which each one of these guys is best at, and he's going to pull the best out of them. I am super excited for the 2025 season. This is the first time in my lifetime. In my lifetime, guys, I wasn't around in 85. This is the first time, besides Lovie Smith, I think the Bears have a coach with a really, really good head on his shoulders.
Yeah, and do we have any other linemen that we?
No, I'm done. That's everybody I've got.
Yeah, I think I might be done. I mean, we could do some Super Bowl picks if you want.
Yeah, I got a couple Super Bowl props. I ran into one today, and I just threw $75 on this two-legger. They had DeAndre Hopkins over 14.5 receiving yards. I know he hasn't been used that much, but barely at all in the playoffs. It's been all Xavier Worthy. But I'm going to tell you this. I slammed it with Devonta Smith over 20.5 longest reception because I ran into this stat today that was really awesome. Devonta Smith has played Spags defense 3 times in his career. He's gone for 99, 100, and 121 yards in those games. He had receptions in each of those games of 31, 41, and 45 yards. So I took those two, and I just
looked like I won a Heisman or something.
Yeah. Well, that was really awesome. So, obviously, guys, I took Saquon Barkley over 113 rushing yards, and I paired that with an anytime touchdown. And I threw one extra leg in that one.
Is that his over-under, or did you dumb that down?
I got it at 113. I don't know if it's moved. I don't know if it's
Oh,
moved.
for sure. It'd be
I
higher
thought
than
it'd be like 125 would be the over.
yeah, for sure. Rushing, yeah, like 125, 126, 127, somewhere.
I can tell you right now if it
that's
moved.
pretty low for them. But yeah, I will say that the Chiefs defense does stand up every once in a while, and sometimes they just show up every once in a while and shut down the run. They didn't do it against James Cook and the Bills, but every once in a while that Bills run defense could be.
This is going to be one of the better Super Bowls we've seen in a few years.
I agree.
Sean and I were talking about this on the phone the other day. I expect this to be an absolutely remarkable, amazing game. The only way this game could suck is if the Chiefs win. That's like the only way this game could suck for me personally. You guys, well, for those of you who don't know, I lived in Kansas City for 6 years. I have a lot of friends out there. I get a lot of text messages about how the Bears passed up Patrick Mahomes to draft Mitch Trubisky. I get a lot of text messages about how the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL and they're going to be a dynasty and the Bears suck. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of Taylor Swift. I'm sick of Patrick Mahomes. I'm sick of Travis Kelce. I want to see the Eagles win this game. And to be honest with you guys, I'm not a big Eagles fan either. If you took away the Packers, Vikings, and I won't even say the Lions because I kind of root for the Lions since they've sucked for so long. But you take away the Packers and Vikings. If you would have come up to me before the season and said, "What is your worst case scenario for the Super Bowl?" I would have said Philadelphia Eagles versus Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. That would have been what I said. So
me and Sean were at the Hugh Douglas game, right? I really am not that big of a fan of
their fans are garbage. You know, their fans deserve to be tackled over a concrete barrier.
I took care of it.
Good job.
For those who don't,
nice job.
For those who don't know, that playoff game in which we were at when Hugh Douglas destroyed Jim Miller, we were all pissed off after the loss, and we dared Jason to spear this guy who was just in an Eagles costume.
Guys, we usually don't incite violence.
Yes, we don't.
It was a different era. It was the 90s.
It was a different era, yeah. But it happened. And it was awesome. So I do have a correction. I have him at 118. He's up to 124.
Yeah, see, that's going to get to 130. That's going to get to 128.
He's rushing and receiving. He's at $143.
Jesus, they are projecting this to be the
that's too much for me.
Show.
That's too much for me.
In the Super Bowl, that's crazy.
I mean,
he may not get the single season rushing record, but he might actually wind up being, if the Eagles win and he has a game like that, he's going to wind up being the MVP.
I mean, guys, this is truly a game of inches. If it would have been Bills-Lions, it would have been one of my favorite Super Bowls in the history.
Oh, yeah.
Here we are with the Eagles and the Chiefs. I'm like, oh, God, it's like a replay of 2 years ago. And you know what? I don't know why. I think the Eagles are a better football team on paper, but I just can't bet against Patrick Mahomes anymore. Every time I do, it bites me in the ass, so I just can't do it anymore. I may take over-unders for the Eagles, but I'm certainly not picking the money line in this game. I think this game is going to come down to less than a field goal.
Yeah, the last time they played, it was 38-35. I think the defenses are a little bit better in this Super Bowl than they were in the previous Super Bowl. So I think it's going to be a little bit more scoring. But
yeah, and to Sean's point, guys, keep an eye on MGM Sports Twitter page because last time these two teams played each other in the Super Bowl, MGM came out and said themselves on Twitter, we would make the most money if the Chiefs win by 3. And they did. So keep an eye on MGM's Twitter page because that last time they said that, that's exactly what happened. So if you're a conspiracy theorist, bet whatever they say.
And one more time, we're going to put a bow on this thing, but one more time, don't forget, we'll have the bare minimum back. Brandon and Dustin will be back tomorrow, late night, 11:30, burning the midnight oil. We'll be back on Monday for the Alice Hall Hangover. And then I will not be here next Wednesday. Kyle and Jason will hold that down. And then coming up on Saturday, we will have our second, I guess, but we'll call it the inaugural, even though it will be the second Northside 9. We started it when Kyle Tucker was signed because I couldn't control my excitement that we actually signed a top 5 player in baseball. Holy crap.
It was like John Lester all over again.
Yeah, we're gonna bust that out. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Alex Pat, we're gonna put Alex Pat in the hot seat. He's gonna join the show. Christian DeCosta is gonna jump on the show. We're gonna have a lot of fun with it. It should hopefully be a lot of fun on the north side. And we still may have some breaking news. The Cubs, as of about 45 minutes ago, are still hot on the trail of Alex Bregman, and they're still in talks with San Diego for Swarza and Dylan Cease. And I'll tell you this right now. You get Bregman and you get Cease and you get Swarza in the back end of that bullpen. I'm going to be drinking the Kool-Aid. The Cubs are playing the Dodgers in the NLCS. Hands down. They're better than give me a team better than them in the National League. You're not going to find it. Maybe the Braves. maybe the Braves.
You know how much I love that the White Sox traded away Dylan Cease just from the wind up on the goddamn Cubs.
Well,
Yeah,
how
I
do you
love
think
it.
he got to the White Sox in the first place?
He left us.
We gave him to you, man.
Yeah,
I'm
for
sick of watching the
Carlos
Cubs acquire.
Quintana.
I'm sick of watching the Cubs acquire talent by trading away young talent. It was guys who were already here.
Carlos
Isak
Quintana.
Paredes was drafted by the Cubs.
Yes, he was.
We reacquired him last year. Dylan Cease was drafted by the Cubs. The Cubs are trying to reacquire him this year. Like Cubs, if you got young talent and you think they're going to be great in baseball for a long time, keep them on this team. Unless you're going to win a World Series, keep them on this team.
I actually, my opening bet, I have Jalen Hurts over 214 passing, Pat Mahomes 2 passing touchdowns, Pat Mahomes over 220, and Saquon Barkley at 110 rushing. And I bet that.
What's the odds?
I got that 4-legger at what is it? 4-pick plus 450.
There you go, guys. 4-star 4-leg parlay plus 450.
And then for the Super Bowl, I did this the day of the NFC AFC championships as well. I got Barkley, Kelsey, Hurts anytime touchdowns, 3-legger. That was 50. That's 50 to win 400, dude. So let's get in that.
That's gone down. That's definitely gone down.
Has the line moved? Is it still Philly by 1.5?
Hold on. What you say, Kyle? You said you think that's going to happen?
I said I think that's gone down.
Oh,
the odds of I don't think you're going to get 50 to win plus to win 450. I think now if you made that same bet today, it'd probably be 50 to win 360, 370.
Let's see here.
They expect Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley to score touchdowns every single game.
The line is still minus 1.5 for the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 1.5 point favorites.
The Chiefs are favorites. Yeah,
yes.
The Chiefs, they always were. Yeah.
The Chiefs are favorites. The over-under is 48, man. I'm right around there. At that 48. So,
if the Chiefs are given 1.5, I definitely bet. I take Philly.
Yeah, I got the Eagles winning 31-30.
Yeah, I mean, I have the over. I have them 27-24. That's the 50-51. So, I guess maybe I'm going to bet the over. I'm going to bet the over and the Eagles plus 102. Throw a hundo on it. Let's go. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Yeah, and Sean will put all of his parlays on Facebook, guys. The Facebook page, 4-Star Chicago Sports. You guys, please safe. Please enjoy your Super Bowl, man. It should be a good weekend. Please don't drink and drive, guys. They're going to be DUI checkpoints out like what's going on in style. We don't want you getting
an Uber.
Breaking news, Bruce. We appreciate you joining us. Plank, Atmas, Brandon, Dustin, Philip, James Kelford, Dennis Moody, T. We appreciate you, Zach. Thanks for coming in. Broski Bear, you guys are awesome. Daniel Jeffries.
A lot of great comments today.
Really good. Darius, we appreciate you coming in today, man.
Yeah.
Scott Angel, Lauren Ratner,
having
Liz,
us live on the screen at River Street.
Jay, we appreciate you joining us again, man. We got a good trio going on here. Trey, I don't want to forget Trey. He's always here early. Appreciate you joining us, brother.
Yeah, Daniel Jeffries checked in too. I don't know if you said him.
I said Daniel. Turd Ferguson, he came in for a minute there. And also, we appreciate all the new listeners we have on Twitter today. This is the first time we've been connected to Twitter, guys. We appreciate you guys joining us. This is our personal Wednesday record for the most people watching ever. Thank you so much, guys. Like we said this 100 times. If it wasn't for you guys, we would just be 3 idiots talking about sports.
We still are 3 idiots talking about sports. You're just listening in.
Yeah, Jason and I will be breaking down the Super Bowl next Wednesday. Keep an eye out for that not this Saturday, but next Saturday, Northside 9 Cub Show. We'll have a couple special guests here for you guys. Appreciate everybody. Stay safe. Love y'all.
Anything you want to get out there before we wrap up?
Shit, fuck Green Bay.
All right. Yeah. Let's go.
Let's go.
Until
next week. We love y'all, man. Have a great night. Thank you.